This guy is dining alone in a fancy restaurant, and there's a beautiful redhead sitting at the next table. He's been sneakily checking her out ever since he arrived, but doesn't have the courage to start talking to her. Suddenly she sneezes, and her glass eye comes flying out of its socket toward the man. His reflexes kick in, and he reaches out, plucks it out of the air, and hands it back to her. The redhead is mortified. "Oh my, I am so sorry," she says as she pops her eye back into place. "Let me buy your dinner to make it up to you." So he joins her table, and they enjoy a wonderful meal together. Afterwards, they go to the theater, followed by drinks at a bar. They talk, they laugh. She shares her deepest dreams, and he shares his. After paying for everything, she asks him if he would like to come to her place for a nightcap. He says yes, and they return to her place. He ends up staying the night. The next morning, she cooks a gourmet meal with all the trimmings. The guy is amazed at how everything has been so perfect and how incredible this woman is. He can't believe his luck. "You know," he said, "you are the perfect woman. Are you this nice to every guy you meet?" "No," she replies, "you just happened to catch my eye." A New York attorney representing a wealthy art collector called his client and said to him, "Saul, I have some good news and I have some bad news." The art collector replied, "I've had an awful day. Let's hear the good news first." The attorney said, "Well, I met with your wife today, and she informed me that she invested $5,000 in 2 pictures that she thinks will bring a minimum of $15 to $20 million. I think she could be right." Saul replied enthusiastically, "Well done. My wife is a brilliant businesswoman. You've just made my day. Now I know I can handle the bad news. What is it?" The attorney replied, "The pictures are of you with your secretary." A policeman catches a man with some weed in his pocket. "You're going to jail for all that marijuana in your pocket," the policeman stated. "But officer, this weed isn't mine. It keeps appearing in my pocket every time I flush it down the toilet." The man replied, "Oh, really? This I gotta see. If you can prove it, you're free to go," the policeman challenged. The man takes all the marijuana out of his pocket and puts it in the toilet. He then pulls the handle and watches it go down the drain. Several minutes go by and nothing happens. "Well, why hasn't the weed appeared back in your pocket?" the policeman asked. The man innocently replies, "What weed?" Fred is 32 years old and he is still single. One day a friend asked, "Why aren't you married? Can't you find a woman who will be a good wife?" Fred replied, "Actually, I've found many women I wanted to marry, but when I bring them home to meet my parents, my mother doesn't like them." His friend thinks for a moment and says, "I've got the perfect solution. Just find a girl who's just like your mother." A few months later, they meet again, and his friend says, "Did you find the perfect girl? Did your mother like her?" With a frown on his face, Fred answers, "Yes, I found the perfect girl. She was just like my mother. You were right. My mother liked her very much." The friend said, "Then what's the problem?" Fred replied, "My father can't stand her." My wife was standing in the kitchen, preparing our usual soft-boiled eggs and toast for breakfast. She was wearing only the t-shirt that she normally slept in. As I walked in, almost awake, she turned to me and said softly, "You've got to ravish me this very moment." My eyes lit up and I thought, I am either still dreaming or this is going to be my lucky day. Not wanting to lose the moment, I embraced her and then gave it my all, right there on the kitchen table. Afterwards, she said thanks and returned to the stove, her t-shirt still around her neck. Happy but a little puzzled, I asked, "What was that all about?" She explained, "The egg timer's broken." One day, in a schoolroom, the teacher asked the class to use the word fascinate in a sentence. Molly put up her hand and said, "My family went to my granddad's farm and we all saw his pet sheep. It was fascinating." The teacher said, "That was good, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate, not fascinating." Sally raised her hand and said, "My family went to see the Grand Canyon, and I was fascinated." The teacher said, "Well, that was good, Sally, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate." Little Johnny raised his hand, but the teacher, being a little hesitant on account of she had been burned by little Johnny before, finally decided there was no way he could damage the word fascinate, so she called on him. Johnny said, "My Aunt Carolyn has a sweater with 10 buttons, but her bosom is so big. She can only fasten 8. There were 2 statues standing in the park, one of a naked man and one of a naked woman. They had been facing each other across a pathway for 100 years. One day an angel comes down from the sky and with a single gesture brings the 2 to life. The angel tells them, "As a reward for being so patient through 100 blazing summers and dismal winters, you have been given life for 30 minutes to do what you've wished to do the most." The male statue man looks longingly at his female statue companion. The female statue woman returns his lustful gaze. They go running behind the shrubbery. The angel waits patiently as the bushes rustle and giggling ensues. After 15 minutes, the 2 returned, out of breath and laughing. The angel looks at his watch. You have 15 minutes left. Would you care to do it again?" He asks her. "Shall we?" She eagerly replies, "Oh yes, let's, but we should change positions. This time, I'll hold the pigeon down and you crap on its head." A little boy is lying in bed, busting to go to the toilet. So he gets out of bed, runs downstairs into the living room, and finds his mother chatting to a bunch of her friends. "Mom!" the boy yells at the top of his voice. "I gotta piss! I gotta piss!" Well, the mother is mortified at her son's language in front of her guests and scolds the young boy. "Quentin, we do not shout that word in this house. Next time, just whisper, okay?" The little boy nods sheepishly. His mom takes him to the bathroom and tucks him back into bed. The next night, little Quentin is busting to go to the toilet again. So he gets out of bed, runs downstairs into the living room, and there is his mother having a glass of wine with her friends. "Mom, I gotta whisper, I gotta whisper." Mom excuses herself and takes Quentin to the bathroom, smiling at her son's innocent mistake, but relieved that he was at least more discreet than last time. She takes Quentin back upstairs and tucks him into bed. "Well done, sweetie," she says, kissing him goodnight. "That was much more polite." A few nights go by, and lo and behold, the little boy is busting to go to the toilet again. So he gets out of bed, runs downstairs into the living room, and there is his dad watching TV. "Dad," Quentin says softly, "I gotta whisper, I gotta whisper." "Oh, is that so, little buddy?" says Dad, his eyes fixed on the television. "Come on over here and whisper in Daddy's ear."